Tom was a simple farmer who lived a quiet life far away from the noise of cities. His land stretched across gentle hills covered with golden wheat and tall grass that swayed whenever the wind passed. He loved his work. Every morning before the sun even touched the horizon, Tom would walk through the field with his old hat pulled low over his eyes and a mug of coffee in his hand. Life for him was peaceful and predictable, just the way he liked it. The farm had been in his family for generations. His father had built the wooden fence that ran around the property, and Tom had kept it standing through every storm. He never wanted much more than to keep the land alive. The soil was rich, the sky was clear, and his world felt steady and safe. One evening, a strong storm rolled through the valley. The wind tore through the trees, shaking the barns and bending the tall grass until it nearly touched the ground. Rain slammed against the windows and thunder echoed across the hills. Tom stayed inside, listening to the storm's roar, hoping his animals were safe in the shelter. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind broken branches, scattered tools, and deep puddles across the field. When Tom stepped outside, the smell of wet earth filled the air. He looked toward the fence line and saw that a long section near the southern edge had fallen over. Some posts had snapped, others had been pulled halfway out of the ground. Tom sighed, picked up his toolbox, and began walking toward it. The ground was soft from the rain, and each step left a deep print behind. When he reached the broken section, he set down his tools and inspected the damage. It was not too bad, but it would take the whole morning to fix. He started by digging out the old posts one by one, using his shovel to loosen the soil around them. After the third post, his shovel hit something solid. The sound was different from a stone's dull thud. It was sharper, like metal striking metal. Tom frowned and crouched down. He brushed away the wet dirt with his gloved hand, expecting to find an old iron pipe or some farming junk left by his grandfather. But what he uncovered was not any metal he had ever seen. The surface was smooth, cold, and silver, but not rusted. Even after being buried under heavy soil, it shone like new. The more he cleaned it, the more it reflected the light around it. Tom dug wider around the object. It seemed to be part of something larger. The edge curved downward into the earth, disappearing under the soil. He stopped for a moment and leaned on his shovel. His heart beat a little faster. There was no record of any metal deposit or old machinery under his land. It was too deep to be trash. A strange excitement began to grow in him. He dug again, carefully this time widening the hole. The object grew larger as he uncovered it. What looked like a simple plate was connected to smooth ridges that ran in perfect lines. Tom tried to scratch the surface with his shovel, but it left no mark. He even took a hammer from his toolbox and struck it once, but the sound that came out was hollow and soft, as if it had absorbed the blow. The surface did not even dent. He sat back, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Whatever it was not from any machine he had ever seen. By midday, Tom had cleared enough of the dirt to reveal a round shape about 2 meters wide. It looked like a circular lid or hatch. At the center of it, faint patterns were visible, like symbols or carvings, though they were too smooth and perfect to have been made by hand. Tom stared at it for a long time. He felt a pull, a quiet curiosity that made him forget about his fence or the rest of the farm. He thought about calling someone, maybe the local office or a friend who knew about old machinery, but something inside him told him to wait. It felt personal, as if this strange discovery had been meant for him to find. He went back to his farmhouse, grabbed a lantern and a brush, and returned to the site. He spent the rest of the day cleaning around the object until the sun began to set. When darkness came, he still did not want to stop. The metal surface caught the faint glow of his lantern, giving off a silvery reflection. It looked alive in the dim light. As he worked, he noticed that the air near the object felt cooler. Even the smell of the soil was different, sharp and clean like rain on stone. When he placed his hand on the surface, a soft vibration ran through his palm. It was gentle, almost like a heartbeat. Tom pulled back quickly. He looked around, half expecting to see something else moving in the shadows. Nothing stirred except the breeze brushing through the grass. He decided to cover the hole for the night. He placed a tarp over it and weighed it down with stones. On his walk back to the house, he kept turning over what he had seen. Could it be part of an old satellite that had crashed long ago? Maybe something from a plane? But that made no sense. There had been no reports of crashes here, and the object looked much older than any aircraft part. That night, Tom lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind kept returning to the vibration he had felt. He tried to convince himself it was his imagination, but the memory was clear. The feeling was too real. Eventually, he fell into a restless sleep filled with strange dreams of lights moving under the ground. The next morning, he woke early and hurried back to the site before the sun had fully risen. When he pulled away the tarp, he froze. The dirt around the metal had shifted slightly, as if the ground had moved during the night. The faint markings on the surface were glowing with a soft blue light. Tom blinked several times, thinking it might be a trick of the early light. But the glow stayed. It was dim but steady, running along the edges of the patterns like flowing water. He crouched closer and reached out slowly. The air above the metal felt charged, the same way it feels before lightning strikes. He stopped just short of touching it again. He felt a mix of fear and wonder. There was no sound, only the quiet hum of morning insects and the rustle of the wind. Yet something deep inside the ground seemed to be awake. He spent the next few hours trying to uncover more of it. The shape became clearer. It was not a single object, but part of a larger circular structure buried deeper below. He found what looked like seams or joints where panels connected together. Each line glowed faintly when his shovel touched it. At one point, his shovel slipped and hit the center of the circle with a sharp clang. A pulse of light ran across the entire surface, spreading outward like ripples in water. The vibration under his feet grew stronger for a few seconds and then stopped. The glow dimmed back to what it was before. Tom stepped back, breathing heavily. His first thought was that he had broken something, but the surface remained smooth and unmarked. His hands trembled slightly as he looked down at it. He knew this was no ordinary metal and certainly nothing built by human hands. By late afternoon, he decided to stop digging. The light had faded again, though the strange hum remained faintly in the air. He packed his tools and walked back to the house. He tried to eat dinner, but his appetite was gone. Every sound from outside made him glance toward the window, half expecting to see something glowing in the distance. Before going to bed, he stepped out onto the porch. The night sky above his farm was clear, filled with stars. He looked out toward the southern field. From this distance, he could not see the metal or the hole, but he could sense it there. It felt like the ground itself was holding its breath. Tom thought of calling someone the next day. Maybe the local college or a research group would want to see it. Yet deep down, he hesitated. This discovery had changed something in him. The land he had worked all his life suddenly felt different, as if a hidden truth had always been waiting under his feet. He stayed outside for a while, listening to the quiet night. A faint breeze passed through the trees, carrying the scent of earth and rain. For the first time, Tom wondered if he had uncovered something that did not belong to this world. When he finally went to bed, he whispered a short prayer, hoping that whatever he had found was not dangerous. But somewhere out in the dark field, under the tarp and soil, a soft blue light continued to shine, steady and silent, waiting for morning to come again. The next morning began like any other, yet Tom felt uneasy the moment he woke up. The air outside was colder than usual, and the silence of the farm carried an edge of tension that he could not explain. The birds were quiet and even the wind seemed slower. Tom dressed quickly and walked toward the southern field with his shovel in hand. The tarp covering the strange metal was still in place, but when he lifted it, he saw that the soil around the edges had sunk again, as if something below had shifted during the night. The faint blue glow from yesterday was gone. The surface looked normal now, smooth and still. Tom knelt down and brushed away a thin layer of dust that had gathered overnight. His hand trembled as he waited for any sign of movement or light, but nothing happened. He let out a long breath and sat down on the grass. Maybe it had been a trick of the light yesterday, he thought. Maybe it was only his imagination. Still, something inside told him that what he had found was not done yet. He decided to keep working. Tom began to dig again, widening the hole carefully. The metal sheet continued to curve downward, revealing what seemed to be part of a larger structure. Every strike of the shovel sent a dull, metallic sound through the air. He felt a strange pull to uncover more, as if the object wanted to be found. Hours passed. Sweat rolled down his neck and dirt covered his arms. The sun was high when he finally noticed something new. Near the edge of the metal, the soil became harder and dry, even though the rest of the ground was still damp from the storm. He tried to dig deeper there and suddenly hit another section of the same smooth surface, but this one was slightly raised, like a hinge. Curiosity pushed him forward. He cleared the dirt with his hands until the hinge-shaped part connected to what looked like a circular lid. His heart began to pound. It looked like a hatch or maybe a door leading down into the earth. Tom leaned closer and pressed his ear against the metal. At first he heard nothing. Then just when he was about to pull away, a low hum passed through the metal and into his ear. It was steady like a heartbeat. He jumped back, startled. For a long moment he stood there in silence, staring at the hatch. The hum continued, soft but clear, coming from deep underground. He did not know whether to run or keep digging. He chose to stay. He brushed the dust off the surface again and noticed faint lines forming around the hatch, almost like the glow he had seen before. The lines grew brighter and the air around him grew colder. Tom took a cautious step back. Then, with a slow grinding sound, the circular hatch began to move. The soil around it shifted as the hatch lifted upward. A thin mist of cool air escaped through the opening, brushing against Tom's face. It was not the smell of earth or rust, but something clean and sharp, like rain mixed with metal. Tom covered his eyes as the light from below grew brighter. When he lowered his hand, the hatch had fully opened. Beneath it was a chamber filled with soft blue light. The space was smooth and round, lined with panels that shimmered like water. Floating in the center were small metallic shapes that moved gently, turning in slow circles as if they were weightless. Tom could not believe what he was seeing. His first thought was that it was some kind of hidden military device, maybe a government experiment that had been buried here years ago. But then he noticed that everything looked too perfect, too precise. The shapes floating inside the chamber were not held up by wires or magnets. They were just suspended in the air. Tom took a step closer and peered inside. The air inside the chamber glowed faintly and pulsed in rhythm with the soft hum. He could feel the vibration in his chest. He wanted to step back, but his feet would not move. Then, without warning, a calm voice echoed through his mind. "Are you the caretaker of this world?" Tom froze. The voice was not coming from outside. It was inside his head. He looked around, but there was no one near him. His mouth went dry. "Who is that?" he asked out loud, his voice shaking. "I am the Sentinel," the voice replied, still calm and steady. "You have awakened me." Tom backed away slowly until his heel hit a rock. His mind raced. He had no radio, no device that could project a voice like that. He tried to convince himself that he was imagining things, but the voice continued. "Do not fear," the Sentinel said. "I am not your enemy." Tom swallowed hard and asked, "What are you?" "I am a watcher. I was placed here long ago to observe, to wait, and to record the rise of your kind. For ages I have slept beneath your soil. Now your world has reached the point where the watchers must awaken." Tom stared at the glowing chamber, unable to speak. His thoughts spun like a storm. A watcher beneath his farm? Recording humanity? It sounded impossible. Yet the voice felt real, calm, and ancient, as if it had seen everything. "Why under my land?" Tom finally asked. "This place was chosen for its silence," the Sentinel replied. "For the patience of those who live close to the earth. I was to wait until a human of steady heart would find me." Tom did not know what to say. He was just a farmer. He fixed fences, grew crops, and lived quietly. He was not a man of science or faith, yet this strange being spoke as if he was part of something greater. The Sentinel's light grew brighter, casting long shadows on the soil. Tom shielded his eyes as symbols began to appear across the chamber walls. They moved like living drawings, showing images that he could barely understand. He saw stars, worlds, and shapes of strange creatures made of light. "Your species has reached the threshold," the voice continued. "You have walked the surface of your moon. You have touched the edge of the void. You have learned to create and to destroy. The time of choice approaches." "What choice?" Tom asked. "The choice between balance and ruin," the Sentinel said. "Every world must decide when it grows strong enough to change the stars. Will you reach upward together or fall apart in chaos? That is the test." Tom's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to believe this was a dream, yet everything felt too real. The hum, the glow, the voice in his mind, they all pressed against his senses. "I do not understand," he said quietly. "You will," the Sentinel replied. "But first I must awaken the others. There are many watchers like me across your world. Together we must prepare for what is coming." "What is coming?" Tom asked, but the Sentinel did not answer right away. The light dimmed slightly, and the floating shapes began to spin faster inside the chamber. The air around him grew colder again. "The connection weakens," the voice said finally. "My energy fades. The storm that struck this land woke me, but not fully. You must help me restore the signal. Only then can I speak to the others." Tom hesitated. "How can I help you?" "I am just a farmer." "You are human," the sentinel said. "That is enough. The soil of this world remembers its makers. Touch the ground and listen." Tom knelt beside the hatch. He placed his palm on the cool earth beside the glowing edge. A soft warmth spread through his arm. His mind filled with faint whispers like distant voices carried by the wind. They were not words but emotions: hope, fear, pride, wonder. It was as if the whole world was alive and trying to speak. He pulled his hand back, overwhelmed. The feeling vanished, leaving only the quiet hum of the chamber. "What was that?" he asked. "The memory of your kind," the sentinel replied. "You are connected to this world more deeply than you know." Tom stood slowly, trying to process what he had felt. He looked down at the open hatch, at the strange glowing interior. Part of him wanted to close it and forget he had ever found it. But another part, the stronger one, knew he could not walk away. He stepped closer again and said, "If I help you, will it harm anyone?" "No," the sentinel said. "It will awaken understanding. It will show the truth of what you are." Tom nodded, though he did not fully understand. He reached for the edge of the hatch. The metal was warm now, and the light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Then what do I do?" he asked. "Wait," the voice said. "Others will come. The world will feel the stir of the Watchers soon. When that happens, you must tell them that the choice is near. You must remind them what it means to be human." Before Tom could reply, the chamber began to dim. The floating shape sank slowly to the base of the structure. The hum softened until it became almost silent. "Sentinel," Tom called out. "Are you still there?" "I will sleep again for a time," the voice whispered faintly. "But do not fear. The awakening has begun." The light faded completely, leaving only the dull silver of the metal. The hatch closed with a smooth motion, sealing itself as if it had never opened. The soil around it settled quietly. Tom stood there for a long time, staring at the spot where the glow had been. The wind moved gently through the grass. He could still feel the vibration under his feet, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of something buried deep within the earth. As he walked back to his house, the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The world looked the same, yet he knew it was not. Somewhere beneath his field, an ancient being had awakened, and it had spoken to him as if he carried the weight of all humanity. That night, as he sat by the window with a cup of tea in his hand, Tom looked out toward the southern field. The stars above seemed brighter, almost alive. For the first time in his life, he felt that the earth beneath him was not just soil. It was part of something vast and mysterious, and though he did not yet understand the meaning of the sentinel's words, he knew that his quiet life on the farm would never be the same again. The next few days passed slowly for Tom. He went about his daily work, feeding the animals, checking the crops, and repairing the fence that had started it all. Yet his mind was never still. The voice of the sentinel echoed in his thoughts again and again. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blue light glowing under the soil and heard the words about choice, balance, and ruin. At night, he would sit on his porch with a cup of coffee, staring toward the southern field. The air always felt a little different there now. Sometimes he could feel a faint vibration under the ground when the wind grew quiet. It was like the land itself had begun to breathe. He did not tell anyone at first. He knew how it would sound if he did. People in town already thought he was strange for living alone out on the far side of the valley. If he started talking about ancient watchers under his field, they would think he had lost his mind. So he kept the secret to himself and waited. On the fourth morning after the hatch had closed, something strange happened. Tom was milking the cows when the light bulbs in the barn flickered. The animals grew restless, shifting and snorting. Then all at once, every bulb went dark. For a few seconds, everything was silent except for the soft sounds of the animals. Tom stepped outside. The air was still. He looked toward the field and saw faint blue light glowing under the soil again. It was not as bright as before, but it pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. He dropped his tools and began walking toward it. When he reached the spot, the ground beneath his feet was warm. The hatch was closed, but light leaked through the thin cracks around it. He crouched beside it and placed his hand on the surface. The vibration returned immediately, stronger this time. Then the familiar voice filled his mind again. "Caretaker," the sentinel said softly. "The signal spreads. The others begin to stir." Tom's pulse quickened. "You are awake again," he said, speaking aloud without realizing it. "Yes," the voice replied. The storm that touched this land reconnected me to the deep network. I can now share what must be known. The light grew brighter and the air around him shimmered. The ground seemed to lose weight beneath his feet. Images flashed across his mind in quick bursts, stars, worlds, and shapes of beings made of light and shadow. He gasped and fell to his knees, pressing his hands to the soil to steady himself. "What are you showing me?" he asked. "Memory," said the sentinel. "You must see what came before. You must know why we are here." Tom could no longer see the field. The world around him faded into darkness, replaced by endless space filled with stars. He stood on a surface of glowing dust that stretched to infinity. A massive sphere of light hovered above him, surrounded by smaller orbs that moved like planets. The sentinel's voice spoke again. "Long before your kind rose from the soil, travelers crossed the void between stars. They were seekers of balance and guardians of life. On each young world that held promise, they placed watchers like me. We were to study, to guide, but never to rule. We watched life grow, waiting for the time when a species would awaken to wisdom." As the voice spoke, the glowing sphere showed visions of Earth. He saw oceans forming, mountains rising, forests spreading across continents. He saw animals running free, and then the first humans, small and fragile, learning to make fire and tools. "We watched your ancestors," the sentinel said. "We saw them learn courage and kindness. We also saw them learn greed and war. Humanity has walked a line between creation and destruction since its beginning." Tom felt a deep sadness and pride mixed together. He watched images of history flash before him. Villages turning into cities, machines rising into the sky, rockets leaving the ground. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Because the time has come," the sentinel replied. "You have reached the point where your species can shape the stars themselves. But the watchers cannot decide for you. You must choose what kind of world you will become." The visions faded, and Tom found himself back in his field. The morning light was still soft, but the world felt changed. The sentinel's voice remained calm and steady. "The energy that holds me fades again," it said. "But before I rest, I must pass you a message. There are others like me buried across this world. Some are asleep. Some are damaged. The storm that touched your land has awakened more than one. You must help us connect," Tom frowned. "How can I do that? I do not even understand how you speak to me." "You understand enough," the sentinel replied. "You work the soil. You live close to the earth. The connection between your kind and this planet is stronger than you believe. When you touch the ground, the world listens." Tom knelt and placed his palm on the warm soil again. This time the vibration was clearer, like faint whispers under the surface. He could almost hear distant sounds, voices blending together in harmony. "The watchers share knowledge through the deep network beneath your world," said the sentinel. "It runs through stone, water, and life itself. When you open your heart to it, you help strengthen the signal." Tom closed his eyes and focused on the ground. The hum grew louder in his mind. For a brief moment, he felt like he was standing in two places at once, on his farm and somewhere far beyond. He saw faint flashes of light spreading outward in all directions from his field, crossing oceans and mountains. He opened his eyes again, breathing hard. The light under the soil faded and the hum softened. The sentinel's voice spoke one last time before fading. "The awakening has begun. Tell them when they come that the time of choice is near." The watchers wait for humanity's answer. The field fell silent. The light disappeared completely, leaving only the fresh scent of soil in the air. Tom sat there for a long time, trying to make sense of what he had seen. That night he could not sleep. The voice echoed in his head, and his dreams were filled with images of light spreading across the globe. When he woke before dawn, he turned on the radio to hear the morning news. The voice of the announcer sounded tense. Reports were coming from different parts of the world. Strange blue lights had been seen rising from the ground in remote areas, deserts, and mountains. In one report, an old mining crew had found a buried object that pulsed with energy before disappearing again. Another report spoke of fishermen seeing light under the ocean's surface. Tom's hands trembled as he listened. The watchers were awakening everywhere, just as the sentinel had said. Later that day, two men in black uniforms arrived at his farm in a dark truck. They introduced themselves as government researchers. They said they had been sent because of strange readings in the area. Tom led them to the field, careful not to step too close to where the hatch lay buried. The men brought equipment that hummed and flashed as they waved it over the soil. They asked questions about the storm and whether Tom had noticed anything unusual. He answered carefully. saying only that the ground had glowed once and made a sound like machinery. He did not mention the voice or the visions. One of the men tapped his device and frowned. "There is energy here," he said. "Low frequency, stable but unfamiliar." The other nodded. "We should report this to the central office." They took a few soil samples and left after an hour, promising to return later. Tom watched their truck drive away down the dirt road. He felt uneasy. He knew that once more people learned about the Watchers, they would try to control or exploit them. That evening, he returned alone to the field. The light was gone again, but the ground still felt alive beneath his feet. He knelt by the spot where the hatch lay buried and whispered quietly, "Sentinel, can you hear me?" There was no reply. Only the wind moved through the grass. But deep beneath the soil, a faint hum answered him, like a heartbeat slowing down but not stopping. Tom stood and looked up at the night sky. Stars stretched across the darkness, countless and bright. For the first time he felt truly small, yet also connected to something vast. The Sentinel had shown him what humanity had been and what it could become. As he walked back to his farmhouse, he felt a mix of hope and fear. The world was changing, and soon others would see what he had seen. Whatever the Watchers were, they had been waiting for this moment. And somehow a simple farmer had been chosen to stand at the center of it. When he reached his porch, he paused and turned back one more time. In the distance, just above the southern field, a soft blue glow shimmered through the grass. It was faint but steady, as if the earth itself was breathing under the stars. The blue glow under Tom's farmland did not fade. Every night it grew brighter, spreading faint ripples of light through the soil. From the small town nearby, people started noticing the strange shimmer rising from Tom's land. Some thought it was a new experiment. Others whispered that it was a sign from the sky. Tom knew the truth, but he had no words to explain it. The Sentinel had spoken about others that slept under the earth, and now they were beginning to wake. One morning, large vehicles rolled onto Tom's property. Scientists, soldiers, and engineers filled the area. They surrounded the glowing pit with machines that clicked and beeped. The local news reported that a strange energy field was detected, unlike anything seen before. The government quickly claimed control over the site, saying it was for safety. Tom was told to stay in his house. He watched from his window as strangers in white suits studied the land he had farmed his whole life. Despite the noise and machines, Tom could still hear the faint hum in his head. It was the Sentinel. The voice was weak now, softer than before, but it was still there. It called his name when the nights were quiet. Tom felt a pull inside him, a strange need to return to the open hatch. He waited for the right time. Late that night, when the scientists had gone to rest and the guards were tired, Tom walked out silently. The moonlight guided him across the fields. The air around the hatch shimmered faintly, and the familiar blue glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Tom knelt near it and whispered, "I am here." The Sentinel's voice filled his mind again, gentle and fading. "The others are stirring. The time of choice comes soon. The balance of this world will be tested," Tom asked in a quiet voice. "What choice do you mean?" The Sentinel replied, "Your kind stands between two paths. The way of creation or the way of ruin. The Watchers see both futures, but only humans can decide which one becomes real." Tom's heart beat faster. He did not understand how a simple man like him could have any say in the fate of the world. He had no power, no authority. He was only a farmer who found something buried under his land. Yet the Sentinel seemed to trust him. The next morning, everything changed again. Strange lights began to appear in the skies around the world. From deserts to oceans, from mountains to cities, beams of blue energy rose upward, reaching for the clouds. People across the globe watched in shock. Some believed it was a natural event. Others feared an invasion. Scientists tried to explain it as a magnetic storm, but none of their tools could measure the energy. Tom turned on his small television and saw the same sight from every country. The same blue light. The same pattern. The same silent message written across the sky. He whispered, "The others are waking." The Sentinel confirmed in his thoughts, "Yes, the Watchers are awakening from their long sleep." The network has begun to form. Soon people arrived at Tom's home in large numbers. Reporters asked him questions. Scientists begged for permission to study the whole again. He said little, only that he had found something old and strange. Inside, he felt torn between fear and hope. The sentinel had told him the truth, and now the whole world could see it too. At night, Tom dreamed of stars. He saw great ships made of light traveling between worlds. He saw beings that were not human but kind and curious. They were the ones who had placed the sentinels across young planets long ago. They were not here to conquer or to harm. They were teachers waiting for the right moment to speak. When he awoke, the hum was stronger. It echoed through his body like a song. The lights across the world pulsed in rhythm. People reported hearing soft voices in their dreams. The same question was whispered to many minds. Will you protect or destroy? The message spread through every screen and every voice channel. It was not in any language, yet all people could understand it. For the first time in history, humanity heard the same words together. Some leaders tried to block the broadcasts, fearing panic. Others urged unity, saying it was a sign that Earth was being tested. Tom sat by his window looking at the glowing horizon. He remembered the sentinel's words. The choice must come soon. He went to the hatch again, walking past the guards who were distracted by the strange lights in the sky. When he reached it, the air was alive with energy. The sentinel's chamber was now fully open, glowing like the heart of a star. Tom shielded his eyes but did not step back. You must not fear what is to come, said the sentinel. The watchers will speak through the connection. But humans must choose peace before they can hear clearly. Tom asked, what if we fail? The voice was calm. Then this world will fall silent again, and the watchers will sleep once more until another age begins. Tom looked down at his hands, rough from years of work. He thought of his town, of the people arguing on the news, of the fear spreading across the world. He wished he could tell them that the light was not a threat. It was a chance. Over the next few days, the beams of light grew stronger. They formed patterns in the sky, connecting in great arcs that glowed like a map drawn above the Earth. The scientists called it the global grid. The energy fields extended from the ground into orbit, reaching far beyond what human technology could achieve. Satellites captured the image and sent it across the world. People began to gather in open spaces, watching the sky in silence. The light was beautiful, calm, and gentle. Many felt peace for the first time in years, but not everyone trusted it. Some feared that the beams would harm the planet. Governments sent planes and drones to study them, but none could approach without being pushed back by an invisible force. Tom stayed near the hatch every night, speaking quietly with the sentinel. He asked if the watchers would ever show themselves. The sentinel replied, when your world stands together, they will no longer need to hide. They will walk beside you, not above you. One evening, a great tremor shook the land. The lights in the sky brightened until night became day. Tom stumbled back, shielding his eyes. Across the planet, people fell silent as a single tone filled the air. Deep, steady, and peaceful. The sentinel spoke once more. The awakening is complete. The world is connected. The final voice will be given to you. Tom did not understand. What do you mean, given to me? The sentinel answered, you were the first to touch the heart. The watchers see through your choice. Humanity's answer will pass through your hands. Tom felt the ground pulse under his feet. The light surrounded him. The machines the scientists had built nearby began to spark and fail. The air was warm and full of energy. The sentinel's chamber glowed with a golden hue for the first time. Close your eyes, said the sentinel. Let your heart speak, Tom obeyed. He saw not darkness but visions, cities filled with people working together, oceans clean and bright, forests alive again. He saw children laughing under clear skies. He also saw what could be if humanity chose the other path. Wars, fire, silence. He felt both futures pressing against his mind, waiting for an answer. He whispered with all his heart, we choose peace. The light surged upward into the sky. Across the world, every beam responded, pulsing in harmony. The global grid shone brighter than ever, and then it softened into a calm glow. People everywhere felt warmth in their hearts and calm in their minds. The sentinel's voice returned, faint but content. The choice has been made. The watchers have heard you. Then the light faded, leaving the stars visible again. The hatch began to close slowly, sealing itself under the soil. Tom watched until the last trace of blue disappeared. He felt tired but peaceful. The next morning, scientists found the energy field gone. Their machines detected nothing unusual. It was as if nothing had happened at all. But people remembered. The world remembered. Something inside every human heart had changed. Tom stood in his field looking at the repaired fence and the soft earth that now hid the sentinel's chamber. He smiled quietly. The world outside had grown silent, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of understanding. He knew the watchers were still there, watching from the stars, waiting for what humanity would build next. The farmer took a deep breath, picked up his tools, and went back to his work. The land was calm again, but the future of humankind had already begun to rise beyond the soil. The days after the Great Awakening felt strange to Tom. The blue beams had faded from the sky and the world seemed normal again, yet it was different. People moved more carefully, more thoughtfully. Conflicts paused as communities began to work together. Even the towns near Tom's farm felt calmer, as if a quiet understanding had spread across humanity. Tom still visited the southern field every morning. The soil felt alive beneath his feet, warm and gentle. The hatch was buried, but he could feel the hum of the sentinel pulsing faintly below. Sometimes, when he touched the ground, he felt a connection to something vast and ancient. It was no longer just his farm. It was a part of the awakening network that spanned the globe. Scientists returned several times, asking questions, bringing equipment to measure energy. They detected nothing unusual. The instruments could not measure the heartbeat of a sleeping sentinel or the pulse of a watcher network. Tom answered carefully, saying that the land had healed from the storm and that there was no danger. No one could know the truth yet. At night, Tom often dreamed of the sentinel. Its voice was calm and gentle. It showed him visions of distant stars, of worlds that had thrived and others that had fallen because they did not listen to the life around them. Tom understood that Earth's watchers were not alone. Across the galaxy, similar guardians had waited for the right species to awaken. One evening, a strange sensation filled Tom's mind. He could feel distant pulses of energy spreading across the planet. The other watchers were fully awake now, responding to the choice humanity had made. The connection was subtle but undeniable. From deserts to oceans, from forests to mountains, energy moved in a quiet rhythm. The sentinel spoke. "Your kind has answered. The network is complete. The time of unity has begun." Tom asked softly, "Unity? How can we keep it?" "By remembering the choice you made," the sentinel replied. "You have chosen creation over destruction. Humans must now act as one with the planet, with each other, and with the watchers who guide and observe." Tom felt the weight of the words. He was only a farmer, yet somehow, he had been part of a moment larger than any one person could understand. He knelt by the hatch and pressed his hand on the soil. The hum was stronger than ever, steady and warm. Images flashed in his mind. Cities with clean water and air, forests alive with animals, oceans free of pollution. He could feel human hearts across the world responding to the watchers. It was not magic or technology alone. It was something deeper, understanding, empathy, and hope. People everywhere began to feel it. Even distant villages reported seeing gentle lights, feeling calm emotions, and finding ways to cooperate. In the following weeks, humanity began to act differently. Countries paused wars, sharing resources and knowledge. Scientists collaborated openly, solving problems that had seemed impossible. People planted trees, cleaned rivers, and built homes that were strong yet kind to the earth. Communities came together in a way no one had imagined possible. Tom watched it all quietly. He continued tending his farm, repairing fences, feeding animals, and working the soil. Yet every action felt larger now. Every seed planted was part of a bigger purpose. Every drop of water used carefully was part of the choice humanity had made. One night, the sentinel spoke clearly again. "Your species has taken the first steps toward true harmony. But the test is not over. The watchers will remain, teaching and guiding when humans are ready to listen. Remember that growth comes from patience, understanding, and courage." Tom looked up at the sky. The stars were clear and bright. For the first time, he felt connected to them, not as distant points of light, but as friends who had watched over humanity for ages. He realized that the world had changed not because of machines or governments, but because humans had chosen to see the bigger picture and act with wisdom. The sentinel's chamber under the farm pulsed gently, a hidden heart beneath the soil. Tom smiled quietly. He understood now why the watchers had waited. They had chosen someone patient and steady, someone who loved the earth. In doing so, they had shown humanity what it meant to grow responsibly. The next morning, Tom walked to the southern field with his old tools. He repaired the fence that had started it all, fixing each post with care. As he worked, he felt a soft vibration under his hands, the hum of the sentinel reminding him that he was never alone. He spoke quietly to the soil, saying thank you for the gift it had given him and humanity. Word began to spread that people everywhere were feeling changes. Scientists and philosophers struggled to explain it, yet the truth was simpler than they could measure. Humanity had chosen a path of creation, unity, and understanding. That choice had awakened not only the watchers beneath the soil, but also the spirit of cooperation in every heart. In towns and cities, people began to feel a shared sense of purpose. They built schools, cleaned rivers, and created spaces for learning and community. Leaders listened more carefully to each other, and ordinary citizens found small ways to help one another. It was quiet, subtle, and powerful. Change was no longer forced. It was embraced by the heart. Tom continued his farm work every day. Each sunrise reminded him of the choice humanity had made and the new path ahead. The world was not perfect yet, but people were beginning to see themselves not as conquerors of the planet, but as its caretakers. At night, the sentinel whispered in Tom's mind, showing him distant forests, oceans, and mountains. The watchers remain, it said. We do not interfere, but we observe and guide. Your kind has shown promise. Remember the path you chose. Protect it and it will grow. Tom lay down under the stars one night, listening to the wind rustle the grass. He realized that humanity had grown not because of fear, rules, or machines, but because of the simple decision to choose creation over destruction. He looked toward the horizon where the field had been glowing. The blue light no longer surged into the sky, but the heartbeat beneath the soil remained. Tom felt at peace. He had found something extraordinary buried in the earth, something that had changed the world, and the world had responded with the wisdom of its people. Years passed. Tom grew older, but he never stopped tending his land. Children played near the southern field, learning to plant seeds and care for animals. Scientists occasionally visited to study the soil, unaware of the secret that pulsed gently beneath their feet. The world moved forward with hope and understanding. And sometimes at night, when the wind was calm and the stars were bright, Tom felt the gentle hum of the sentinel and the watchers beneath the planet. He smiled, knowing that humanity had answered correctly. The choice had been made. Creation had been chosen over ruin. He walked through the fields, touching the soil, repairing fences, and planting seeds. Every small act reminded him that even a single farmer could be part of something larger than himself. The watchers were patient. The world was alive, and humanity had proven that it could grow beyond fear, beyond selfishness, and toward harmony. The last light of evening glowed over the hills, soft and gentle. Tom leaned on his shovel and breathed in the air. The stars shone brighter than ever, and the planet below moved with quiet rhythm. Somewhere beneath his farm, the sentinel rested again, but the hum of life continued. Humanity had chosen wisely, and the earth, guided by those who listened, was ready for a future of hope.